we want to jump right on in to something that me and Tisha like to call our light roast. Now, for those of you who do not know, the light roast is when we take and pick apart and critique something or someone in society. But we also like to try to give love as well, right? Try to do some constructive criticism to lift people up after we sort of have to take them down a peg. And so today's quote, T. Shaw, is the pride cometh before the fall. All right. The pride cometh before the fall. All right. So, and as you will see, we mean that quite literally. But T. Shaw, what does that quote mean to you, brother?
Man. That the ego gets in the way a lot of the time. Like that pride, it can blind you. It can blind those like those you have this hindsight knowledge, right? You have this thing that you can't see, and I think that the pride and the ego will help blind you to your weaknesses, and then therefore you're very vulnerable in ways that you could not have imagined. But what about you?
Yeah, I think that sometimes you feel like you're on top of the world and nothing can hit you. And what I've seen in my life is that it's not the first time you're too prideful, the second time. It's like the 57th time because you've become it's become so normalized that like you do it by habit. And then that's when life gets you. That's when life
Mhm.
gets you. We get so many warnings where it's like, hey, you might be thinking a little bit too highly of yourself, or you might not be wanting to let something go, and you should. Like I just got into some conflict with some family members a few weeks ago because I had pride about a certain way I saw money and things like that. So it's definitely something that's relevant, and you just got to remember that the world is bigger than you live with other people, and you have to sort of adjust for that, right?
Absolutely. And I really appreciate how you talked about how it doesn't get you on your first or second or fifth time, right? But it will come at some point. And I think that's the worst part is because people get a little too big for their britches sometimes. That people feel like they're on top of the world and the ego continues to build. It continues to get bigger and your head gets bigger. And then, like Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Like, people tell you and they tell you and they tell you, and then one time it actually happens.
Right, absolutely. And it's like Humpty Dumpty was dead. Like, you're an egg, right? You know you're an egg. Why would you be sitting on the wall? Right. It's just the audacity of Humpty Dumpty. You know what I'm saying? But it's like you can only sit on the wall for so long. He's thinking, I'm a big egg. So like if I crack, I won't crack as I can still survive. But it's like, nah, your pride and your ego is that egg. And once it falls, it's gonna crack even more. You feel me?
You
Uh but
edge.
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying you live in life on the edge too.
And life is gonna push you. It's gonna push you once you're on that
Right.
edge.
Till you
That's
crack.
Jesus. So the reason that we brought up this quote, for those of you who might not understand, I think sometimes we see people and we say, I think we let stereotypes and preconceived notions of who people are get in our heads. And unfortunately, our man Nate Robinson, former slam dunk champion, one of the shortest but more dominant pound for pound players in the NBA when he was in there. He was talking a lot of mess about Jake Paul. Jake Paul is a famous YouTuber, but Jake Paul was taking boxing lessons and he had been in a boxing match. But Nate Robinson came, and Tisha, you correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, Nate Robinson was saying, "Hey, look, man, like you face another, entertainer people. You haven't faced no athlete. You know what I'm saying? I'm a rep for all the athletes." But
Mhm.
unfortunately, before the Mike Jones and Roy Jones Jr. fight, Nate Robinson and Jake Paul got in that ring, and y'all, Lord, uh, Nate Robinson was allegedly running head first into the punches with his whole face,
Nah,
and like just like I don't and like my and when he got punched, he fell down one time and he got up. We were like, all right, Nate. But then that final time, boom, boom. People did not know if he was going to make it. And it has been destroying the Twitter live, Instagram, Facebook, all sorts of memes. It was just bad. T-Shar, what did you learn about life and pride and about Nate after all of that?
Ah, is that like sometimes you just need to take that hard fall to realize that like it
Ooh.
takes time. It takes time to be good at something. This goes back to our time like episode a few days or a few episodes ago, right? That like you can't just jump into something and become an expert. He trained for maybe like a month, month and a half, maybe two. And it's like Jake Paul, even though like yeah, he a little white boy, he racist too. I think that was another part of the motivations that Jake Paul is someone that is very antagonistic. He's in the Trump category of like white men, right?
Mm.
So it's like, ooh, you really want to pop their ass. Like that's what they deserve. But it's like he also has trained. So it's like you can't just hop in the ring, say, oh, I'm athletic. Oh, I know how to do this and I'm gonna excel at it. And it's like that's what happens when you have pride. And it was also maybe a little black pride too. It's like, okay, you racist. I'm gonna do this for my people. I'm gonna do this for the athletes. I'm gonna knock them out. But it's like dude was fighting like it was a street fight. Like he didn't try to block not a punch. Like he was blocking punches with his face. Like you can't do that, Nate. You can't do that. I think the saving grace in that was that Snoop was commentating.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
He said, he said, "Slow down, nephew. You got basketball shoes on." I cried, man.
Bro. And T, because I wasn't as familiar with Jake Paul's antagonistic ways, but it doesn't surprise me. I think he would do like prank videos, and he seems like one of those white boys who just don't take life seriously because his privilege allows him not to, right?
Yeah,
And I think that you make a great point because I think sometimes, and I think you and I can appreciate this as people who are in higher education and who have been in higher education who are still in education. Sometimes you want to, that you're right, you feel like you have the moral high ground, but sometimes without a strategy, the other side can win. The other side is more prepared because sometimes it's not about how moral or ethically right you are, it's about how prepared you are,
yeah,
right? And so Jake Paul, you say what you want about him, but it was a boxing match. This
mm,
Jake Paul didn't come to a basketball court talking about, yo, I'm about to, do all this stuff or dunk on you crazy. This man was much bigger than Nate,
mm,
much taller than Nate, and he had trained for longer than Nate. And I think that I was, as a black man, I was just like, dang, white people are gonna be talking mess, bruh. And because I was like, because it's like if black men are gonna have the like violent criminal stereotype, we need to at least be able to dominate this white guy in boxing. But this I was hurt culturally. Culturally, I was really hurt. But I think like what you just said earlier, I think that this talks a lot about strategy because Nate didn't take this as seriously as he should have,
mm,
right? And honestly, if he was thinking really, really logically about it, he wouldn't have gotten into the ring with someone who was 6 feet, probably over 200 some pounds.
yeah,
Like, there's a reason. Boxing is a very, I think it was almost insulting to the sport of boxing to get in there with someone who had that type of size over you and sort of market it like it was going to be a fair fight.
absolutely. And I think yeah, I want to say Jake Paul weighed in about 10 more pounds than him.
Okay.
Um, and he's much taller than him.
That reach.
Yeah, like they have weight classes for a reason, and it's like all of the advantage was in his like corner, and Nate Robinson like Hart can only take you so far. As somebody that really appreciate hearts in somebody, like it can only take you so far. Like you
Right.
have to have skill, you have to have training with it, and then Hart can take you over the edge. But you can't rely purely on just like pure like just ferocity and pure like I don't want to say aggression, but just pure like effort that won't take you too far. It's like you got to work smarter, not harder.
Right.
um but yeah, like I understood where he was coming from because he did feel disrespected. I had watched one of the videos leading up to it, and he felt like he was like Jake Paul didn't even take him serious at some point. He was just talking about other people he wanted to fight. He was talking about he didn't market it at all because he was just like, oh, I'm just gonna watch him. And I think that that's what it kind of makes sense why he just came into the ring just like trying to like throw haymakers because it's like, oh, like he felt disrespected, but it's also a mind game. That's what a lot of fighting is. It's a mind game. So I think that like that all kind of played into the hands. It played into the hands. But I get it with Nate Robinson. Like Jake Paul and his brother Logan Paul are super famous YouTubers, but they're like known for just super problematic stuff. I want to say Logan Paul. he went to Japan and they have like this suicide forest. And he did a vlog. He went in there and did a vlog and was recording stuff. And it's like you don't do that. Like it's just like, bro, it's against the rules, really. And you deserve to get your ass beat. But like also by somebody that know how to beat ass.
Who's trained, right? Like, right? Like, and I, yeah, it's like you can't run into things head first against the enemy. You know what I'm saying? You got to stay ready. You got to stay ready. You got to prepare. Like, you're. I don't think it's not just like you said before. It's not just your heart. You have to
Yeah.
use your rationale. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And I really appreciate you saying that too, because like this is why I love Fred Hampton. Shout out to my guy, because his thing was that like, okay, revolution will come at some point. That was like the Black Panthers thing. Is like the revolution will come at some point. A lot of people around that time was like, no, let's take it to the government, let's take arms and like let's fight back. But their thing was like to create survival programs to help build people, train people not only politically and educationally, but like socially, giving them the resources that they need. All of that so when the time comes that people are ready to like actually be able to fight back and be like strategically trained and all of that. So it's like you got to play the long game. You got to play the long game if you're gonna win a revolution. And it was like if this was the black and white war, we know now that you just can't go in it with just pure like pure effort, right? You have to
right.
have some type of training. So yeah, I think that was a great point.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild, man. But I will say Nate took the L as gracefully as I think he could. He was joking around on it a day or two later. He was like, "Oh, I just woke up. What I missed?" Like little stuff like that. So shout out to him for getting in the ring because even though it didn't make sense, you got to respect the heart and the hustle of it. And I think he's learned something, and he'll never do something that crazy again. So shout out to Nate for his bravery. And to the baby, I don't know if you saw that challenge. The baby and Jake Paul were in the studio, and they had a challenge where like they're on the floor at first, like laid up like Nate was, and then they get up and start dancing. So the Nate Robinson challenge could be coming soon. It's
That's
pretty horrible. So it is what it is. It is what it is.